appreciate you taking the time to do this. This is awesome.
No problem. I've just what am I doing here? I'm just on a phone. It's my technology is not great, but
Oh no,
okay,
the
right.
audio is great, which is the most important part. So, really the whole point of this is just to kind of get a sense of what athletes at your level are doing for their training and the implications that it has on the racing. I've been fortunate to talk to some of your other teammates and have crossed paths with guys like Stephen Bassett that I live near. And so just been reaching out to people that, and just trying to learn more about it. And I think the first question is kind of a big one, but really what I think a lot of us amateurs can struggle with, especially if we don't have a coach, is how do you, as you're going into the season, start to view like the phases of your training? And even if, maybe do you consider it base? Do you have like builds? What about early season races? And I realize that's like a huge can of worms, but I think it's a good way to kind of like open the conversation. Like, how do you craft your training together? I don't know if you have a coach, if you do it by yourself. Can you kind of just open the conversation with that one?
Yeah, so I think things have changed a lot for me this year. I've just started being coached by my former teammate Max Steadman. So he works at Dutchy Coaching, and before that, I was just doing everything myself. I'd had some help. I was on Zappy Racing Team. I don't know if you've heard of them before.
Okay.
So I kind of used to communicate with him, but more or less, I did my own training. So things have definitely changed this year. In the past, I would kind of, I suppose, doing it on my own, break it down into winter, then in season without racing, and then in season with racing, and then off season. So there's like four things when I was doing it. But now, to be honest, I just do what Max tells me. He communicates with the coach on the team, Yelmer, and then I just kind of give my input as to what I feel I'm missing. After the first race of this season, I felt there was something missing, and just feed that back to them, and then they incorporate.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is that feedback loop, does that kind of start after those initial spring races? Like, do you kind of just do what you're supposed to do, and then it's out? Is like the race the litmus test?
I suppose this year it was. I broke my thumb early season, so before the year even started. So I think the big thing for me was the lack of races. But I suppose, yeah, going to races, you kind of pick up. You can't tell until you get to the race what's going wrong. But with Max, where he knows me so well from being my teammate, that was one of the things I really wanted for this year when having a coach, was someone who knows me inside out, because I know myself really well. And the thing that I wanted was to be able to communicate with Max my feelings, because it's got me so far. So I kind of been doing a huge amount wrong, but with his kind of scientific backing, I hope to improve more.
That's awesome. What do you guys do when you're training in terms of metrics that you follow on your ride? Are you doing most things by power, by heart rate, by RPE, a mixture of those? And how do those play out?
Yeah, I mostly power, I'd say. But then he knows that I like just going out and smashing it as well. So he'll maybe give me a set of efforts, and the last one, the last one might just be full gas. Or one of the things that I wanted to add in this year was, well, actually after racing, because I felt like the race legs were missing, and I feel like replicating racing is very difficult. So one thing I felt I was missing was like the race. Even if you do a race simulation, it's very hard to simulate it without other people. So going out with some of my friends and just smashing it around for 3 hours, like a kind of old school chain gang kind of thing. Accelerations that you're not in control of.
Yes. I'm laughing because one of the last things I had amateur nationals here, and a bunch of things happened, and I just didn't get to races beforehand. And I was like, I think I'm good. And then I went on vacation and was riding, but wasn't doing race intensity, got throttled so badly. And I just looked back at races and I'm like, man, it's just like you said, it's so hard. Even if I had done sims, I can't replicate that intensity. It's just like, I look at numbers like, how the hell did I do that in that race? That's crazy. So that's important for people to hear from somebody like you. You got to go race if you want to do well at races.
Maybe not the pure numbers. You can replicate your pure numbers will be better in training, I'd imagine, but it's the repeated efforts.
Yeah.
And
Or like the time, would you agree the time in these like high intensity zones? Like if I look at like whether someone's doing a 6 zone model or a 7 zone, like just the high intensity numbers, the repeated smashing is, I couldn't imagine giving that as a workout to myself. Is that what you're saying, or do you see it differently?
yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. The
Okay.
accelerations that you maybe don't realize you're doing in a race, and you can't really get them into training.
Yeah. What do you, so you've kind of mentioned you like going out smashing with the guys when you need that type of stimulus. Are you more of a long ride endurance guy, or do you more prefer doing intervals and the intensity aspect of training?
I think a bit of both is definitely needed. So yeah, no, there's just a real mix. I probably don't get on a huge amount of super short rides, like an hour intense. If I do,
Mhm.
it's probably going out and trying to get a com or something like that.
Mhm.
I'd say between 2.5 and 5 hours is the general training day. Generally, the longer ones are less intense, but sometimes I'll add efforts into the long rides as well.
Would you add those at the end or in the beginning, or is it just totally varied?
Yeah, for sure. I like to add them towards the end of the ride, to replicate the type of races I'm doing. Although that might have backfired at national champs this weekend, because a lot of the races I do, it's pretty. I mean, you have the fight for the break, but then it's generally pretty chilled out, and then you'll have a big push at the end. Whereas nationals was just full gas from the start to the end, and I was actually feeling good, front group until like 3.5 hours in, and I was feeling good. It was good. I keep saying it was good until it wasn't good.
That's not your post.
Yeah, and I just cracked big time. And then once you lose that front group, it's like, oh, I was here to race that front group, and then the head kind of goes.
Yeah, it was. I was trying to catch some of those highlights. It sounded just like a brutal day and stiff competition. So, what's your thoughts on in the gym or not worth your time, or maybe that changes throughout the season?
No, I think it's for sure a place. I For me, I do it probably 3 times a week during November, December, and then I'd said to Max I wanted to keep that going. Not 3 times a week, but maybe once a week.
Hmm.
Season certainly some core work, but to be honest, I've let it slip, and I think it's when you're doing the hours and the intensity during the season, it's quite hard to to I don't know. You come back from your training, you just want to recover, and there's never like a perfect time to do it, because the next day you've got a hard training, and you don't want the legs to be ruined from doing some gym work. And whereas in the winter, you're probably going out on endurance day the next day, and you don't need to worry about how the legs feel as such.
Yeah, if the legs are blasted, it's like, it's just zone 2 cruise. Maybe I even go low zone 2 today. What's your, when you're lifting and trying to ride, do you lift before you ride, or do you try to lift after the ride?
Yes, that's a good question. I'd say I think often I actually ride to the gym, do the gym work, and then ride home. Um, but I would say I like to spin. It's normally during an easy day that I do the gym work. So I normally ride after, just to try and loosen up the legs a bit.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm always interested what people have to say, because now I'm actually going to experiment myself with trying to lift afterwards, because I've had some people that have listened to podcasts like, oh, I love lifting after. For me, it's always been, like you said, the motivation. I'm like, I don't really want to go lift, but I'm hoping that in lifting afterwards, I'm less of an idiot and don't lift too hard, because I also won't have the energy to do that. So we'll see how that
Yeah,
plays out, but it's a tough balance, and I feel the benefit, but I also love riding. So it's like, man, I can't always have everything.
yeah.
Do you have any, kind of circling back to when you're talking about you have those early season races and maybe you feel like something's missing? Have you ever had like certain workouts or rides that kind of pop back up where you're like, hey Max, I think I need to do like this type of ride? Or so I don't know if it's necessarily like favorite workout, because there's just so many different type of workouts, but like anything that you think just like really like keys you in. And maybe not, but I'm just always curious about that.
No, I think the thing that I said earlier, kind of a chain gang where you're not in control.
Okay. Yeah.
I also I like just going out and Max knows this, trying to take the comms. So just go. I don't know. I feel like when you're not going well, you just know you need to do maybe not more in terms of hours, but just potentially hours, but more just smash yourself and beat yourself up a bit.
What's your mindset? Like you go to an early race and you're like, damn, I'm a little bit off. Does that worry you at all? Or do you know that you've done this long and be like, okay, I just need to ramp it up a little bit and rep.
I went to, sorry to interrupt you. I
Oh,
went
you're
to my
good.
first, and I was not, from my training, I was like, I'm flying. But that was not the case. So normally I just go with a positive mindset. Regardless, in training, I'm normally going pretty well. It's the racing that's not always there, you know.
So is that like tactics, positioning? I think some people might hear that and not necessarily. Can you go in on that a little bit more? Is it
I
execution race day or?
No, I think like we say, the accelerations are just something that your body's not used to, and it
Hmm.
takes more out. And then in the finale, you haven't got anything left. And then I think kind of they talk about doing a grand tour and the depth you get from that, but on a smaller scale, doing just. I went to Sicily with great form in training, and but I hadn't really raced, so I don't think I performed as I'd hoped. But then gradually I got better and better because I'd done Sicily. I had that in the legs, and I went to Hungary. Okay, I had a bit of a disaster at Hungary, but on the Queen stage, I proved the level was there.
Mm-hmm.
And if I hadn't had a disaster the day before, I probably would have done a good result overall there. And then it got better again recently at Slovenia. So I think for me, it's the racing in my legs that definitely brings me on.
And when you're getting in these race blocks, what are you doing in between? Are you trying, is it pretty chill and the racing is all the intensity, or do you still like add in a hard day here or there?
No, I definitely, I mean, I've had quite big gaps between my races, so still training
Okay.
hard. But for sure, like get the rest after the race and then taper into it. I think for me, it's really important to go in fresh as well.
What kind of taper do you do? Do you have like your special sauce that you like to follow pretty strictly, or is it?
I don't know. Maybe Max has, and I haven't noticed. But I mean, when I was doing it myself, I just knocked down the hours and just keep a few rides with efforts in there. And I think Max would go along the same kind of lines. Keep the engine firing.
Cool. I might reach out to Max and see if he wants to do a chat sometime. What do you think you've learned about cycling over the years that's made you better at cycling?
Hang on. I need to check this because you gave me some questions that I had to think about, and I wrote some notes down so I wouldn't lose my way. Because this was one of the ones. What was the question again? Say again.
So just like, what have you learned about maybe training and racing that's made you better at it? Like, oh man, if I knew that 4 years ago when I started, that would have helped me out, because you've learned some things as you continue to grow as a cyclist. Like your training keeps getting dialed, and just I love this journey. I've learned so much about myself in just being an amateur cyclist, that it's like, man, these guys and women that are living, breathing, doing this all the time, I'm just really curious, like, how do you soak up this journey, and what is it kind of teaching you along the way?
Yeah, okay. I found the kind of note that I jotted down, and I I went kind of more along. I said it's hard to pinpoint one for cycling as such. Yeah, because I don't know. I kind of just go through life. This is in terms of life in general, as opposed to cycling.
I like this. Okay, this is good.
I go through life kind of just watching people and then choosing what the good things that I want to take from them, or hopefully.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know. It's hard. I don't feel like I
So
try to take.
let me ask you a different
people.
way. What's something you've taken from another rider that you think has had a big impact on you? And maybe something as you were like getting into the pro ranks, or even similar to one of the other questions, like, do you have any athletes that you maybe had followed, or maybe mentors in the sport that were like, hey, Paul, you need to do a little bit of this, you need to do that, or?
Yeah, well, I think I take a lot of Probably, yeah, I take the most advice from my brother. Maybe he doesn't understand cycling the best, but I think his positivity and his drive in what he does is a big help for me. And if I'm ever struggling with that, speak to him, and he's always super helpful. One of the things he says is always do it now, like don't put it off. Whether it's make in his line of work, it's make that cool. And he was telling me a while ago, in the hunt for a contract, to just make the call, you know. So I suppose it could be, you could add that to the cycling world as well.
Yeah, totally. What does your
And
brother
then,
do for work?
pardon?
What does your brother do for work?
He's in tech sales.
Okay. I love it.
Uh,
I'm a former sales rep, so that's like in my blood. It's just, yeah,
okay.
it's good.
Yeah.
Do it now. He's damn right. It's that opportunity can just slip. Oh, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. It's like, no, it's not there tomorrow. Go get it.
So yeah, I take probably a lot of inspiration from him in a weird sense, because we're different worlds. But talking of kind of riders I look up to, I've never really idolized riders as such, but this year I've got Sebastian Schoenberger on my team, and I've found him, like I said to him recently, actually, he's really, I don't know if you can class him as a mentor, but you know, when we're at races with him, he's really good at motivating me. And in Slovenia, just gone, I actually was really suffering on the penultimate climb. He said it doesn't matter, like the last climb, a new climb, it just got my head in the game, and I think he's going to be a big help for me this year. And I really like how behind me he is, before the stage as well. Like he's really up for it and helping me get the best result possible. So I
That's
think for the head, Sebastian's been a huge help already, and I'm looking forward to working with him more.
very cool. Shout out to Sebastian. That's a teammate. It's man, good teammates like that. It's invaluable.
I know, you know, super experienced guy, so I really take on board anything he says.
That's awesome. What do you think is something that you want to improve on most this season as a rider?
I think for me, it's just not the specifics, but just for me, improving every year is the most important thing. So just improve generally. That's improve my fitness and improve the main thing is the results. You know, every year I want to improve the results, and so far that's been the case. So to keep doing that is just keep improving, really.
And next question I can cut out if you don't feel like answering it, or you can just say pass and we'll keep it in. What do you think from this year's nationals when you've talked to Max on trying to improve? Do you guys think it's just like, hey, that's just 3.5 hours at a pace that's where you're at right now? Is that just coming, maybe if you're looking a couple years down the road, like, hey, I just need a couple more years of big training to get to that level to be there when it's hour 4, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's the depth, and also perhaps the type of racing that I'm used to. It's very different. Yeah, I think we touched on that earlier, where it's a bit more relaxed and then a harder finish, a bit more traditional style of racing. Or yeah, the breakaway goes, it relaxes, the pace gradually rises, and it's a big push at the end. Whereas I think this was more maybe kind of, I'm raced in Belgium myself, barely at all, but more Belgium kind of racing where it's just full gas all day. So I think to go well at those kind of races would be about going to those kind of races, and building the depth that way. But you know, for the first 3.5 hours, I felt really, really good, and so in that sense, it was a bit disappointing. But maybe I was doing too much for what I had in me, and perhaps could have been smarter as well. But I think if I can build that depth, it's, you know, even in races like that, I think I can perform.
Do they change the course very often for the UK Nationals, or is it a similar style each year there?
So this year was a lot hillier than it is usually. That's what I'm hoping to go well. But that said, it's still there was a lot of climbing meters, but perhaps the kind of rolling nature of how the climbs were incorporated didn't suit me perfectly. So
Dude,
the longer,
this is so insightful for so many people, because I think it is just that race specificity really matters. And you're dropping a lot of really good points here. This is awesome. And then I guess my last question on this, not to beat a dead horse. So, but I think it's good. Like, you're really kind of narrowing in on the type of rider you are, and maybe it suits different races. What do you think is your best? And I would consider you like a climber type. I don't know if that's how you consider yourself, but what do you see? What's your like best attribute in cycling? And then how do you try to use that to your advantage in the races? So you've kind of talked about the more traditional race where, are you just really good at this one last big effort at the end, or kind of, can you go on and on that a little bit?
yeah, no, I think you've just spot on there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a climber. I'm really, really light guy, so the climbs are where I have to make the difference. And for me, yeah, I think a relatively easy race with a big push at the end is good for me. Having said that, I also like to be in a whittled down group. So I think that's where the longer climbs, not super long, but the slightly longer climbs where you get in a smaller group and then can attack out of that is the way for me.
This is really good for us amateurs, because especially in the US, like, there's so many different types of races, especially now with like gravel getting in the mix, that, you know, I think people sometimes want to try and be good at all these different types of things, and then they're not great at any of them, and then they end up at 7th at everything. And it's like, well, maybe the crit and the 7-hour gravel and the 2-hour road race is too big of a like web to be trying to cast out there. So Paul, you're like, this is awesome. This is really good.
But you're like a Tom Pidcock or, you know, Wout van Aert. You can.
Okay, yeah. It's like some of these guys can do everything, but for us mortals, for myself, I'll say at least, not for you, but yeah, it's tough. Got to get like just a little bit of focus helps a ton. What do you think in your daily routine? Is there anything that you kind of do every day that you feel has a big return to your success in cycling?
Yeah, I think I would always have said a little nap in the afternoon, because like the recovery part of it. But actually, I like that. It's good. I'm sure it's good. But I think the thing that's kept me going, I think, are the like your daily treats. You know, to we're not all robots and perfect. So I think to keep a bit of normal life alongside the stress and the focus of cycling is really important. And without the fun things that I enjoy doing in life or eating, probably wouldn't still be a cyclist or cycling, but have carried on to this level.
I think there's
it's important for the head, for sure.
Yeah. And I think would you agree that it kind of goes, there's not as much, you know, we can read a lot about intervals and we can read about like power numbers and data, but I don't think there's enough of a conversation of longevity in the sport of, hey, do you want to do this for the next 18 months? Or do you really love cycling and you want to try and get better over the next 7 years? And I think a comment like that really shines light to, like, okay, I'm not a robot. I need to have this little piece of candy or this treat or whatever. And it's the human side of this sport that I think we can miss just because there's so much focus on data, and it's really important, but it can't be everything. And I just think it's easy to lose sight of that sometimes. So I definitely personally appreciate, I'm going to look for a treat today after my VO2 max intervals.
Yeah. I think, because I met the DS on Human Powered Health last year, who's moved on, but Alex Sanz Vega, because I was chatting to him last year when I stagiaired for a race or two, and I said, obviously, like, coming to a professional setup, I really want to dial everything and yeah, really focus and make things the best I can. And with that, he immediately said, just don't stop enjoying it as well. So I definitely, that's maybe one of the pieces of advice that you were looking for earlier.
Perfect. I love that. That is, yeah, that's really good. So speaking of treats, nutrition on the bike, what are you doing on, can we break it into two, like your non-race days and then race days? And I think a lot of people are mostly curious of, are you like a hard food? Are you gummy, chewy candy? Are you all liquid carbs? If you could kind of go into that on those on the bike nutrition.
Yeah, so at Hume How Health, we've got fast food who are supplying our nutrition, and they're currently like tailoring products for us.
Ooh.
The gels, the gummies, and bars which are on their way. So I'd have a mixture of everything during the races for sure.
Cool. What about off the bike? Are you naturally like a healthy eater? If people look through your IG, or like you had a picture of Dumb and Dumber, you and Mason, I think, and it was like two just shredded dudes. I'm like, okay, this guy's not eating cheeseburgers all the time. What is that? Just your natural state, or what do you try to
Uh,
focus on for like recovery and maybe pre rides or pre races?
so I think for my meals, certainly just like a classic balanced diet. My meals are good. Breakfast, maybe often eggs on toast, avocado, or like porridge and some fruit. Normally more eggs on toast, but sometimes a bit of porridge. And then for lunch, yeah, like depends on the training, but maybe a sandwich or a salad, some carbs or no carbs if depends on what training I'm doing. Just a bit of everything, and then dinner again. Like I suppose in the UK we say like meat, potatoes, two veg, that kind of thing. I
Okay.
don't I don't actually eat like that, but just a general mixed diet. I think my snacking's a little bit different. You would argue that's questionable.
Well, what's going on there? What's going on there, Paul?
I do like chocolate and biscuits and that kind of, you know, half cake here and there. Just keeps me.
Hey, you're not a robot, man. You got to enjoy life. What
Uh,
what's the you had mentioned maybe no carb. Do you do any low carb or fasted training, or is that
no, I said that. I mean, I'm just saying. No, I don't. I'm not super specific with it. I don't change things up much regarding my training. But if I've had a really big day, I'll just get some more fuel in afterwards, or for dinner have a slightly bigger dinner. We have Fawn. They supply the supplements for the team, so I'll have a protein shake after a hard training. And they also do things like iron as well. So do those to keep healthy and hopefully not get sick. Iron, vitamin C, your multivitamins, that kind of thing.
before big smashing stages? Do you carb load at all, or like lean your diet towards carbs? Or do you just stay pretty standard across the board?
Yeah, so to be honest, that's the hardest part for me is the eating, just getting enough in. Yeah, it's obviously carb heavy around races. We're eating rice like 3 times a day, which does my head in. So
Because you don't like it, or just like it's, dude, I got to eat all this rice.
it's everything. I actually love food, but at races, I hate it. I despise it. There's just too much. So I normally go down for breakfast, have a relatively normal breakfast, and then because it takes me so long to get through the rice, I get a little Tupperware full of rice. Whereas normally people would eat it with their breakfast. I'll take my Tupperware and basically eat it up to the point of racing because I just struggle to get it down.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You on plain rice? Are we ever doing like honey and peanut butter to help like sweeten it up a little bit for you, or?
So I spent a lot of time on Italian teams. So it was usually rice and olive oil and cheese. But now we have a little food box on the team, which is very exciting for me, coming from an Italian team. So I now go for maple syrup on my rice, and
There we go.
that gets it down the best possible.
Awesome. Are you big into cycling tech, like things on your bike, or do you just show up and ride what they've got for you?
Yeah, that I kind of just show up and ride. Although they've sorted me out with a really, they've taken the paint off my my felt, and it's like this cool black thing. So that's pretty nice. And I've got to say we've got new wheels as well, and I always in the past thought that the tech wasn't like a huge part of it. But yeah, these new wheels, I always thought wheels would be the biggest part of making a bike fast, but the new ones are like, yeah, wow, from vision, and it does feel really good. So
Real interesting.
I used to tell the difference, but now it does feel pretty fast.
That's awesome. So speaking of something feeling pretty fast, do you get into aerodynamics or do you focus just on the watts? I know it's
Yeah. I was wearing an aero helmet on the flatter stages in recent races, so that was pretty good of me. But I'm not the biggest aero freak, I suppose.
okay. No,
But
I'm in the same. I wish I was more into it. I just even things like I tried aero socks and they were like drooping down, and someone's like, because you didn't what the guys, you didn't glue them on. I said, glue on the socks. He said, oh yeah, of course they've slipped out. So I like didn't even know what I was doing, and I was like, I don't do this on the bike, and some people love it, and I don't know, I don't get excited by it. So
can I skip you? You said what's overrated?
yeah, what's overrated?
For me, I mean, maybe I think it's probably me, with my small legs. But yeah, the socks falling down, it does my head in.
Do any of your teammates use them?
Yeah, and they all stay up, so fair play. It makes sense for them to use them. But
Okay.
I think it's me.
Well, while we're on that, anything underrated in cycling that people aren't doing or that they're maybe like overhyping?
Whew. Yeah, yeah, there is. This is a difficult one. I jotted this down because I think each to their own. Maybe I don't do things which would be beneficial to me, but maybe I'm not one to fuss over the smallest details. So with that in mind, I think this could be controversial, but I'm gonna, it's just how
Do
I'm thinking.
you? Yeah.
Being lean or like fit, especially as a climber, is kind of you can't talk. It's a taboo. No, you can't talk about it. But if you're wanting to be an elite athlete and you're doing everything to the nth degree, with watts per kilo being like a big part of cycling, I mean, be sensible about it. Don't kind of let yourself waste away, and fuel yourself well for training, fuel yourself especially well for racing. But I don't think you can be worrying about like a 50 gram heavier stem if you've got 1 or 2 kilos to lose,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know, I almost feel bad for one of my old coaches has received some comments about it, and I think it's almost unfair on the coaches who are trying to get the best out of their riders, to be told that they can't talk about this. I think it's a very like difficult subject to talk about for sure, but if everyone's sensible with it, it is a part of cycling. Maybe less so for the bigger riders, the sprinters, but at the same time, they've got climbs they need to get over as well. So I'm sure the top guys are also doing the best they can the top sprinters are doing the best they can to keep their power, but be as light as they can so they can get over that climb and then be the fastest in that group, So I think that's a difficult subject to talk about, but I think it's quite I don't know. I think it's really hyped up, and
So you're saying people are getting slack for telling people to be lean and like be as light as possible?
I think, yeah, my old manager who has helped me out massively, and I think he would perhaps, he's very old school Italian. Maybe he approached it in slightly the wrong way, and I think that's the point where it's wrong. But I think it is important.
Mm-hmm. So I'm only an amateur, but I want to jump on this because I had somebody who's telling me about like putting all this time and effort into like a cold plunge and a sauna. And it's like, bro, you have like 10 pounds to lose. Like, let's focus on the big gain there. And I was, you're tripping over dollars to pick up a quarter. Like, and so I think when you say, hey, this 50-gram stem, or you have 2 kilos to lose, and it's just, I think people get lost, and weight is massively important. A guy told me when I was younger, go pick up a 5-pound bag of sugar and imagine riding your bike with that. And I was like, 5 pounds, but you pick it up, you're like, oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Where am I carrying too much weight? Weight matters. Yeah. No, I think, yeah, it is a little bit. I think for me, hearing some of those conversations that I sort of disagree with is where it became, you got to be as skinny as possible. And you said it, fuel your rides, be healthy. But I think then people say, well, I don't want to lift weights because then I'm going to get bulky. I'm like, dude, you're not going to get bulky. You're going to get lean and lose body fat and be like a ripped ass athlete who's going to crush these rollers, climbs, whatever. And they're like, I don't know. It's like, well, you could, then there's skinny fat people who are like, they look thin, but they take their shirt off. And it's like, dude, you're kind of doughy. Like, you need to work out a little bit. So yeah, I think you're right. It's a tough conversation for a lot of people because there's a lot of different things being said in a similar way, and they're meaning different things, and it comes across differently to different people. And I appreciate
for sure, it's the balance, isn't it? But
yeah,
I know that's one of my little things on my mind.
Cool. Well, yeah, if you see Paul on his IG, he's staying lean for sure. What is your biggest inspiration, whether like internally, externally, to keep pushing forward? Because it's obviously a really hard sport. You don't get to win all the time. What keeps you going?
I again touched on this earlier. I think I've always seen improvements. And as long as this keeps happening, kind of why would I stop? I'm enjoying myself. It's a good thing to be doing. I'm in a good place, So it's the improvements that keep me going. If I reach a plateau, then maybe I would reconsider things. But
keep going, man. It's at some point you maybe hit like a little stall out. And you just gotta like reconfigure things and keep on smashing. You never know. Can you finish this sentence? I never ...
Yeah. To put so I don't get so much stick for my previous comment. I never weigh food. So yeah.
That's been like you said, I never weigh food. Okay. Yeah. I'm into that. I've tried it before. It's just way too time consuming. And I'm like, yeah. It was a very educational though, I would say, coming from an American background where I didn't know what a true portion of food was. It was very eye-opening, and I realized why I got into cycling, because I was like 30 pounds overweight. And so it was very educational, but I don't think healthy in the long run. It becomes very just not a good relationship with food, I think. But which race are you looking forward to the most this year?
Sunny ones with good weather. That's usually I always look forward to looking in Italy, to be honest. Spend so much time there. Yeah, I always look forward to racing in Italy. So any races over there, that would be great. But yeah.
Any particular places in Italy that you really love?
I would say Sicily, but it never goes as well as I hope. I love the race, and then it never goes as well as I hope. I really like Giro dell'Apennino. We didn't do that this year, but that's one of my favorite races.
And where is that?
That is Genoa.
Okay. Do you have, so this is I don't even know if this is, I'm going to ask a question anyways. You've given so many tidbits and points, but I usually like to put down like, hey, do you have any top 3 attributes or skills for success, or things that you think have helped you get to your level that other riders can kind of maybe relate to? I don't know if it's the best question, but does anything pop to mind?
I think one thing for me, so maybe it's more personal to me, but okay, it's a bit hypocritical.
Personal is good, man. We want to hear about you.
I stress a lot about the big things, and also I feel like I'm a bit of people pleaser, so maybe I stress that to please other people all the time. But in general, talking about kind of the bikes, the food, and everything, don't stress the little things. I think it's important. So it's important to be adaptable in cycling, because if you're stressing those little things before the race, if something goes wrong in the race, you're going to be stressing even more. So I think just I don't know. Does that make sense? Don't stress.
100%. And if I could tack on something that your teammate Stephen Bassett said, people have this image that, oh, the race went perfectly. He said, no, the person who won, their race went the least badly. It's like maybe 70% went how you thought and planned and everything. You just got to be nimble and change and adapt and be able to flow. I've learned that has been a skill that I've taken into my own life from cycling, because I'm a very like, I'm doing this from 8 to 8:30. I'm doing it. Blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the race and like registration's in a different place and you flat and you this and this is not ready. Your jersey's red. Like just these things happen. And if it rattles you, you're screwed. You got to just be more nimble. So no, that resonates very well with me personally.
Yeah.
What else you got? That was really good.
I think positivity. If you're going in with a negative mindset, you're done from the start. You know, there has been times where I suppose I've been like that, and yeah, you're not going to get anything from the day. So yeah, just really that positivity. Even if you have some doubts, you just go in like, you're the best. You got to be. You going in like, you may not be the best there. You may know you're not the best there, but you go in like, I'm the best here. You know,
yeah,
and you go in there to win.
I love that. I was actually going to ask you that as a follow-up. Like if you're going to, let's say you go to Worlds and you're there, you're on the start line, you're like, damn, there's a lot of fast dudes here. Are you like, I'm winning this thing today. This is mine.
Yeah, I think, you've got to be realistic.
Yeah. Okay.
But even if you said you're winning today, it doesn't mean you win the race. You've got your own little win, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Whether that top, it depends on the race, but whether that be a top 15 or a top 10,
Right. Let me ask you this, and I can take this out because it's like kind of puts you on the spot. But the way I would approach that race, and it's like, could you envision like, okay, hey, well, maybe I get in a break with these 3 other dudes who are way stronger than me, but I get to latch on, I'm in it. And then like, I'm the guy that they don't think wins. And maybe I can like get away on this last climb and like, okay, maybe the chance is 0.0001, but there's literally a chance because I'm on the start line. Or is that just like, you're like, that's too much of a fantasy and you don't go down that road?
I think at nationals there's some, as an example, there were some seriously talented guys there, and with been pros for a long time with a lot of depth, and realistically, did I think that I was going to beat them? Probably not. But when the race was on, I was like, I've got to be in this front group, and I'm going to be in this front group until the end of the race, and then I could be racing out for the win. Okay, that's not what happened, but I think, yeah, during the race before it all went wrong, I was like, yeah, I'm really in this,
That's good. That's I think very encouraging to people. It's encouraging to me because you just got to go race flat out. And if the race falls apart, well, so be it. Maybe those guys were stronger that day, but you went for it. You rolled the dice. You see what you had, and that's huge. And no doubt, insane training, as we've been talking about. Like the racing is just so hard. Last 2 questions for you. What do you like to do when you're not riding or racing or training?
I just chilling out. In Spain, I'm normally just in Italy the last couple of years, I was pretty on my own, even a bit lonely, but I just quite happy just sitting on my balcony, listening to music, playing a bit of guitar. At that time, speaking to my friends on the phone, and then obviously when I'm around friends and family, trying to see them as much as possible, going out for coffee, cake.
So get those treats in. Yeah. I will ask this last question, but you've already dropped so many gems that if you don't have one, no worries. best piece of advice for the newer cyclist? And I could ask another way. Maybe you've already given some tips that people have given you of, make sure you're enjoying it, but maybe the best piece of advice you've heard besides that one. What could we pass on to the listeners as your kind of parting words?
Best piece of advice. Oh, I went actually like more I don't know if it's scientific, but
Let's go with it.
I went for rest,
Yes.
which is
Just
nice,
like
eh?
before after the ride in general, be well rested. Where do you go with that?
Yeah, I just think I've seen it. People just burning out, whether that be completely or for their next race being too tired, or for the season for a few months. I think maybe listen to your body was better than rest. Yeah, and I often, going back to working with Max, and I often feed back to them how I'm feeling, and if I feel like I need a rest, I'll tell them. And when I was doing it all myself, for sure, I didn't have the scientific back in. So if I didn't feel 100%, I was more likely to just take a rest day. I felt it was better than doing too much training.
Having Max with you, besides like his scientific background, do you find more confidence in your plan just having that extra set of eyes and someone to say, hey, what do you think about this?
I think, yeah, I'd say, but I also think the biggest thing is having someone who's accountable for me. In the past, when I trained myself, I would have to get out on the bike very early, because not very early, but early, because if I didn't leave in the morning, the training's probably not getting done. Whereas now I'm actually leaving sometimes in the afternoon, but I know it says the training there, and I know if it's there, I've got to do it. It's my job at the end of the day. So if I was to not be doing it, it would be it'd be bang out of order.
I think a tidbit for amateurs where it's not their job that they might be able to take something from that also is find what your default is and make sure you're just not doing that all the time. Because that's one thing when I haven't been coached is I love long rides, and I'm like, oh, I'm just doing a 5-hour ride. Oh, I'm doing a 5-hour ride. And I look back, I'm like, damn, I really haven't done any intensity or intervals in a while. But, well, I'll do it tomorrow. So gotta listen to your brother and go do it now. And that's why today I'm getting the VO2 max done. And so let's freaking go. Man, Paul, this was awesome. So many incredible insights. I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this, especially after, I'm sure, a busy schedule of getting back from nationals and everything. So we'll all be rooting for you this year. And is the best place for people to follow you? Obviously, you're active on Instagram. Do you do like Twitter or any other social media stuff that people can check out what you're posting?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Strava as well. They can see my training, that kind of thing. Yeah. But no, thanks for chatting with me.
Thank you so much, everybody. Give them a follow on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.